What's going on, summoners? I'm Coach Eggs. Now I'm very excited to bring you this video because it is going to help you out a ton. In just the next 10 minutes, you will know who the 10 worst champions are of patch 10.25. Now the patch dropped yesterday and it was a biggie. With all of these changes comes a change in the pecking order of what champions are broken and what champions want to revert. Now the purpose of this video isn't to rub salt into the wounds of champions that are underperforming, it's to inform you and everyone else why they are struggling, and you never know, maybe someone from Riot comes across this video and buffs these picks. And this leads me into our question of the video. What is one change you would give to your main champion right now? Personally, I would love to see a change to Shaco's boxes so I don't have to use my ultimate to clear jungle camps. That would be great. Now before we send, I just want to quickly let you know about our awesome website GameLeap.com. Join thousands of others and get signed up today so you can have access to the hundreds of challenger tier content we have to offer. Links will be in the description and comments section. Alright, let's get into it. Now the truth is, GameLeap, some champions don't synergize at all with the new items and are falling heavily out of place in a meta dominated by tanks and early game power spikes, as I'm sure you're all aware. So all the champions on this list have a counterpart who does their job better and spikes harder with the exact same items. Starting off the countdown, in at number 10 we have Singed. A couple of nerfs and changes to certain items has put you mad chemists in a pretty bad spot. When the new items came out, you were happy as a Singed player. Riftmaker with Demonic Embrace and Rylai's actually felt good and you had something to play towards. However, Riot nerfed Riftmaker's bonus damage later in 10.23 and Demonic Embrace's DPS in 10.24. Now your best synergy as Singed in years past was with Liandry's. Your poison and Liandry's burn was a very toxic combination, but the health was also valuable. Well, that HP has now been replaced with mana, so you may still dish out a good deal of damage with Liandry's, but you die in a second. Because of this, Riftmaker is better for the health and Omnivamp, but doesn't give you as much power. Now these suboptimal damage mythics, if you like, have led some of you out there to build Turbo Chem Tank. With this though, you just become a fling and ground bot for your AD carrier, and who on earth picks Singed to do this? Into meta top laners, you struggle at every stage of the game, and though you have some decent matchups like Jax and Tryndamere for example, the new items favor both a lot more. Dear Rito, please help Singed. As we move on to the number 9 spot, make sure you guys smash that subscribe button and turn on all notifications so you don't miss anything season 11 related. Sparkling her way in at number 9 is Zoe. If any of you want LP in this patch in season 11, then I suggest picking another champion. It's not that Zoe got worse because of the new items and whatnot, it's that everyone else got better. And more importantly, assassins, who are your biggest counters, benefited greatly from the new updates. Think of Fizz, Zed, Akali. These 100-0 champions can really ruin your day. You might still be able to do well in the early laning phase, but it feels as if your 2 skill shots, your Q and E, are not enough to impact a game anymore. I mean, heck, before you didn't even have to land a skill shot to kill someone, you could just abuse your passive and auto attack them to death. If you even think of doing that now, every champion you run into has damage to punish any of your missteps. Tanks are also a dominant force in this meta, and you tickle them on a good day. Does it really matter if you put an Ornn or a Maokai to sleep? Not really. Now Luden's Tempest did get an injection of ability haste this patch, but it's still lower than the 20% CDR the old Luden's Echo gave you. This is important because in the bigger picture your damage is lower, so you need more casts of your abilities to be as useful, and that isn't the case at the moment. Up next we have Xayah at the number 8 spot. Even if you love Xayah and you want your E-boy to play Rakan, just don't, straight up. In lane you are incredibly weak early on. Your cooldowns are long, you run out of mana quicker than meta ADCs like Jhin and Misfortune, and you are immobile. Alistar, Leona, Rel, these meatheads can easily force their way onto you, as can the meta mid laners and junglers, and if you're not level 6, well, one combo is enough to send you packing. You also get outranged by a lot of the strong ADCs at the moment. Think of Jhin, Draven, MF, Ashe, and this means you get harassed easily and have no priority in lane. To even have a chance of winning a game, you have to hope your team is doing well enough so you can scale to a point where the enemy team finally realizes, oh hey, the enemy team has a Xayah. The critical strike changes at the beginning of the preseason put a big dent in your power. There are other AD carries that hit 10 times harder with crit, Kai'Sa and Vayne for instance, and you take way too long to come online compared to your fellow marksmen. Finish it off, as Xayah you are way too ultimate reliant in an environment packed full of high engaged tanks and damage dealing assassins. 160-second cooldown at rank 1 is absurd, to be honest. How on earth are you meant to survive in this meta? Now unless you're a big fan of the name Susan, stay away from Nasus this patch, and this is our 7th pick. Sheen was a massive item for all you Nasus players in the early game. Cooldown reduction, mana, and the Spellblade passive that procced on your Q. Now, you don't have the cooldown reduction and mana, and all you're left with is the spell Spellblade. How good is that? Thanks, right? Your early game, therefore, is even weaker than what it was, and the overall changes to Trinity Force leave a lot to be desired. You get less health, less movement speed, no mana, less cooldown. It doesn't get much worse. In addition, the other mythics also don't empower you as much as other top laners. Gore Drinker gives you everything you want stat-wise, but there's no Sheen and Spellblade passive, and though Divine Sunderer builds out of Sheen, it has a different passive and is just meh on Nasus. As Renekton's brother, you are meant to scale into a late game beast, but because the new mythics are pretty lackluster, your scaling is weaker by default. Attaining Siphon Strike stacks is harder as well because you can get hard bullied in lane, and you have to hope your team can stall the game out long enough for you to become even somewhat relevant. Coming in at number 6, we have Gangplank. If there was a top laner not worth putting time into this patch, it is GP. Now you might be thinking it can't get worse than Nasus, can it? Well, unfortunately it can. The changes to Sheen and Trinity Force have sent all you GP mains back to a 44% win rate, which is the lowest out of all the top laners. Sheen may cost 350 gold less than its older version, but it no longer gives mana and cooldown reduction as we talked about. The Spellblade passive still procs on your Q of course, but that is all you get. You can no longer spam Qs and non-stop harass your opponent in lane because you will be before you know it. It's also important to know that your ultimate costs 100 mana, so your laning phase is a constant battle with your blue bar instead of with your opponent. Another problem, same as Nasus, is that you don't have an optimal mythic item. The fact of the matter is that whatever mythic you choose, there are 10 more champions that make better use of it. Now even if you win lane on GP, in terms of scaling, you are a snail compared to every other top laner, and you're not meant to be. So even if your opponent is 1 and 5 and you have probably gone through this already, once they get their mythic item, they can all of a sudden 1v1 you despite being down 2,000 gold. Now I actually love Gangplank and it hurts to put him on this list, but we can't hide from these facts and hopefully Riot won't either. We're now into the top 5. Well, it's more like the bottom 5, but anyway. The 5th spot is held by Shaco. Now this Demon Jester might be frustrating to play against, but to play him this patch is a massive uphill battle. The biggest drawback is that your clear speed is the worst in the entire game. The new nerfs to Ember Knife and Hailblade make it harder for you to take down jungle monsters, and it's impossible to keep up with every other jungler in terms of camps. If you compare how quickly a Graves full clears with a Serrated Dirk for example, to a Shaco with Hextech Alternator or Tiamat, it is ridiculous. At level 1 you can still only place 3 boxes, which is a real cuck if you ask me, because you rely on them even more. So if the enemy team invades and ruins your setup, your game is also ruined because it's the only way you can maintain similar clear speed with your opponent. If you're looking for an AD assassin to play this patch, play Kha'Zix instead. In at the number 4 spot we have Varus. The underlying reason why Varus is just straight up bad this patch is because there is no build that lets you compete with the top marksman in the game. Though you have many options, none of these compare to a Jhin with lethality or a Vayne with a mythic and a 2500 gold Phantom Dancer. If you want to go lethality Varus, you can just pick Jhin or Misfortune and do the same job but better. If you want to go on hit Varus with a Ginsu's and Runar's Hurricane, you can just pick Vayne or Kai'Sa. If you really wanted to test the patience of you and your teammates, you could go AP Varus with a Nash's Tooth, but yeah, just don't. It takes an eternity to come online, by which time you're 0-10 anyway. Thankfully, the Muramana change won't affect Varus, and if you were to go Duskblade and Muramana, you can actually still do fine, but that's it, just fine. You are still very killable for every meta champion, and you have to rely on your support in the early game to help you through it. There are a lot better choices than everyone's favorite male archer, but hopefully Riot help him out. Bloodsucking his way into the number 3 spot is the third worst champion in 1025, and that's Vladimir. Now Vlad was hit hard by the 1023 and 1024 changes, and no buffs to him or his items have kept him in the dirt. As Vlad, your early game has always been a weak point, and cooldown reduction was your way out via Proto Bell. Well, the thing is, Rocket Bell no longer builds out of a Kindle gem which gave you CDR, so you are forced to wait even longer for your power spikes. The counter to Vlad, as we all know, is Grievous Wounds, and the cheap and effective 800 gold anti-healing items act as another roadblock to your scaling. Now to cap it all off, in early game skirmishes you are straight up useless, and these really matter this patch because the best champions in the game pop off after an item or two. Your long cooldowns and lack of CC almost force you to play like an assassin instead of a battle mage, and your jungler is left to 1v2 while you watch on. Guys, success on Vladimir is very tough to come by, so stay away from picking the vampire. The worst ADC of the bunch is coming in at our number 2 spot, and this is Aphelios. Do you remember when Aphelios came out and you would one-shot anyone that came close to you? How times have changed. Like Xayah, the crit changes have destroyed the weapon of the faithful. Your late game is meant to be insane, and with the Infinity Edge changes, your 3-item spike will certainly be better, but good luck getting to that point in this patch. Your early laning phase is easily exploitable because of your lack of damage and no escape. All the engage and burst in the game is too much, and you rely too heavily on your support to keep keep you safe. Good luck with that in low elo. Carrying on, you are auto attack based, and these don't do much because of the crit nerfs, and your abilities also scale off crit, so these are less impactful as well. So because your early game is worse, it's harder to accumulate gold, and this is a massive disadvantage because your core items cost an arm and a leg. Whether you choose Kraken Slayer, Gale Force, or Immortal Shield Bow as your mythic, these are all 3400 gold, as are Runar's Hurricane and Infinity Edge. You have to spend over 10,000 gold just to become relevant. How insane is that? You struggle against all the engage and bursts in the game at the moment, and you don't do any damage to tanks until 2-3 items deep. If you want to keep putting holes in the wall this patch, then keep playing Aphelios, but I'd recommend against it. Here we go, guys. The worst champion at 1025 and in most need of some love from Riot HQ is Corki. Like others in this list, Corki has been heavily impacted by the Sheen changes and not in a good way. As a mid laner, you go up against champions like Fizz, Zed, Akali on the reg, and these champions generally have weak early games, so it should be your time to shine and harass them. But on the Corkster, you can't. You run out of mana quickly, your cooldowns are long, and your level 6 is a lot less meaningful than your opponents. Riot have also changed mirror mana, so the extra damage procs on physical abilities and basic attacks. On Corki, only your E deals physical damage, and though you might auto attack in late game teamfights, it's simply not worth it anymore. Sacrificing the entire early game to hope you can get to full build doesn't sound like a successful strategy. In high elo, Corki has a 45% win rate in the mid lane, and it's only going to get worse. Save yourselves a hardship, guys, and steer clear of playing these 10 champions this patch. Before I go, one last friendly reminder to check out GameLeap.com before closing this window, links in the description and comment section. The best courses, guides, and videos going around to help you reach the summit. Thanks so much for watching, this has been Coach Jigs, and until next time, peace.